Amazing. Welcome everyone to Portfolio Talks. This is the spot where if you want to learn about finances and put yourself in a position where you can learn about money and get yourself in the room where you weren't able to get, around those conversations, this is the spot. We want to bring conversations around money right to you on your phone at your fingertips and make it as easy as possible to understand some advanced concepts that aren't really that advanced. So you got myself, you got Mike. He is the mortgage broker at the Home Happy team. And today we want to talk to you guys about taxes, which sounds super boring. I get it, but we're going to talk about simplification of understanding taxes, deductions, RSPs, TFSAs, everything like that. So, Mike, where do you want to start?
Keeping your money is cool, though, so you should remember that. And this is a special edition. We kicked out Tyson because we wanted to only have the cool people on this call. So, yeah, I mean, it's basic, but it's stuff that most people either take for granted or don't think about too much. But it's so important. It's the building blocks of how you keep your money and build your net worth. That's really what we're talking about.
Absolutely. And I think a really important thing to understand is you should pay taxes. All of us should pay taxes because one of the best things, and we're recording in Canada, but one of the best things about the Canadian system is, as much as there's so much talk about becoming the 51st state and all that stuff, I personally think it would suck because one of the best things about Canada is we take care of our old, our poor, our sick, and our less fortunate. And we do that via the tax system. So at some point, you'll probably, if not already, use some type of the tax system. Yeah, it's not perfect. It takes a long time to get care and whatever, but you don't need to make a decision of like Sophie's choice of, hey, I can't really save this family member because I can't afford the bill that comes with it. You don't have to worry about that in Canada because our tax system. That being said, you don't need to leave a tip. I went to Starbucks today and I told her exactly what I wanted. Uh, Told her all the modifications, and the tip came, and I was like, I felt guilty. I was like, whatever, just take the tip, and just I get offered, I don't want to leave. So for taxes, you don't want to leave a tip, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So many of you out there are going to be either employed, and that could be like a salary position or hourly position, or you're going to be a sole proprietor or self-employed, which changes kind of what you do. So maybe let's start there, Mike. For those, of the audience that are watching and are self-employed or have a corporation specifically, what we see in the financial planning side is when we first onboard clients, a lot of their accountants are like, "Oh, just do dividends," and they don't ever pay themselves a salary. What's the benefit and also the downside of that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're working, like you said, the taxes are taken off. There's ways to plan for that, but it's pretty set. As a self-employed person, you have more decisions to make, and you need to educate yourself on those decisions and the effect they have. Like you said, most accountants, and it's not the accountant's fault, but it's because people just say, "Oh, I want to pay the least tax possible." Well, sometimes it's better to pay a little here to get more there. And to your point, as a self-employed, you have the choice to either take a salary from your company or your sole proprietorship, or put it through dividends. And dividends are taxed in a lower rate. And by the way, we're not accountants, so please check with your accountant on all this stuff. But in general, taking dividends saves you some money on tax in the most general way. However, it also means you can't then use it for RSPs down the road. So RSP allowance is built on whatever you're paid on a salary. If you're taking out all dividends, you're not going to have any allowance added for that income that you're making. So think about that. From a long-term point of view, having RSPs as a long-term plan obviously is one of the best tax savings programs we have in Canada. And while you might be 25 right now and thinking RSPs, who cares? That's so far away, I can't imagine. Believe me, it moves fast, and the so many people wish they had done more when they were younger, me included. That you just put some in, and just the time, 40, 50 years of whatever it's invested in is going to add to your net worth hugely. So that's the long version. But anything else to add on that?
Well, I think the good news, Mike, is you're still young, so don't worry about that. You still got a lot of years ahead of you. But yeah, the only thing I would add is, of course, it's an oversimplification saying dividends are cheaper tax, but some of the reasons why is you don't have to pay CPP. So when you pay yourself dividends, you don't have to pay CPP. Is that good for you or not? I don't know. Like a lot of people say, well, you can outperform CPP if you just invest on your own. Sure, but are you going to invest in your own, or are you going to spend it on something else randomly that's not going to benefit you? So, on top of not being as advantageous as possible for if you pay dividends, you're not going to get RSPs. If you pay dividends, you're probably not going to be contributing to CPP, and there's a lot of benefits that come with CPP. And the other thing is the lending side of it. So you know, again, oversimplification, but do lenders prefer dividends or salary?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they don't technically care, but if you're pulling a salary, let's say you started your company and you were doing the same thing previously, but now you just started your company. Um, if you take dividends that year, they're going to look at it and go, "Oh, you started your company. We're going to have 2 or 3 year average to figure this out." Some lenders will look at it in a different way, but many will want that history. Whereas if you're taking a salary out, they're more likely to say, "Oh, well, you're continue doing what you're doing previously, so we can see that, and away we go." So there isn't really like they don't say, "Oh, dividends bad, we don't like that," but you have to show history, and lenders don't like when there's any doubt. When they see doubt, they put more risk into it and either say no or charge more rates. So they want to see consistent income. That's the big thing, whether it's dividend or salary. But you can get away with it a little easier with salary, certainly early on. But yeah, it comes down to a plan. You really should have a great accountant chat, talk about what the ramifications are, not just say, "I want to pay the least tax." Just say, "I want to end up in the best shape down the road. My plan is to buy property. My plan is to do this or that," and have that overall discussion with them. Then come back and talk to a financial planner and a mortgage broker and come up with a whole plan for yourself, either 5 years out, 10, 20, 30 years out. So it's I hate drilling about plans all the time, but it's so important because if you're just winging it and trying to decide on each situation, it's not going to work together, and you're not going to get the advantages of those different ideas. So yes, lenders will consider it. They want to see more history and generally on dividends than they will on salary.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my highest net worth clients always had an interesting perspective on taxes. He's like, I think of it like a membership club. The more taxes I pay, the more benefits I get from the lenders. And that was his perspective on it. He holds a bunch of real estate, commercial and residential, and that was his philosophy on it. Is yeah, I got to pay tax, but it's kind of like a golf club or a membership club or whatever. I get more benefits the more taxes I pay. Do I like to pay? Would I like to pay less for the same benefits? Of course, but it kind of is what it is, and it depends on what your strategy is. If you're someone that wants real estate, that could make sense. If you don't really have a desire to own real estate, that's okay too. Then maybe that doesn't make much sense. So, for those of you that are kind of confused of like what is dividends or salary, probably the way I would say it is if you own your company, there's two different ways you can pay yourself: salary or dividends. Salary is you paying yourself as the key employee, and dividends is you paying yourself as the shareholder. The same as if you were going to own stocks of Apple. Apple is a blue chip company, so as the profits increase, they distribute or give out money to their shareholders, and you would collect, 100, $200, whatever that may be. It's the same idea for your corporation. As your corporation has profits, you can distribute it out to your shareholder via a dividend, or you can elect or choose to pay yourself the same amount of money as salary as a key employee instead. You can choose depending on your structure. So for someone like myself, who I am the sole employee or the sole shareholder, sorry, of my company. Actually, that's a lie. My wife is also a shareholder of my company, but I'm an employee and a shareholder of my company. Then I can pick and choose how I want to pay myself. Sometimes in some years it'll be dividends, sometimes it'll be all salary, oftentimes it'll be a blend. So it just depends what your strategy is going to be. So moving on from that one, our tax system in general, Mike, I don't know if you're like me, but every time I open up IG or TikTok or whatever it is someone talking about Canada's so expensive, you pay 50% taxes. If you earn 100,000, 50,000 has gone to taxes, and people start freaking out in the comments. Is that or is that not how our tax system works?
That is not how it works. It's a tiered system, and it's meant to be fair. Is it complex and overly complicated? Yes, but it's basically supposed to be that when you don't make much income, you either pay no tax or very little, and as you move up the scale and make more money, then you pay more. It's meant to be a system that's fair to everybody, and yeah, I mean, when you get into the top tiers, you're paying quite a bit of tax, and that sucks. But you're also helping your country more too. And I'm not here to rail on about taxes. I know neither are you, but we just want you to understand the reasoning behind it, and that early on, that's why it might make more sense to take a salary and pay more tax, and then eventually move into your company dividend situation when you're at a certain level. And that's where an accountant will be really handy because they'll be able to tell you where those levels are and how that impacts you. From a lender point of view, they that well, I shouldn't even say from a lender. I was going to say about RSPs, like that's where RSPs can make more of an impact on you. The higher your income gets, because you're going to those higher tax rates, then that all comes back together with you. And so it's like I said, it's very complicated, very complex, the whole thing. But having a basic understanding that when you're making $30,000, it's going to be a totally different tax level than when you're at 100,000 or 200,000. And it's good for people to understand that. You actually can look at Canada Revenue Agency's website. It is on there. Boring as anything, but yeah, it's there.
Absolutely. Yeah, super boring. Unfortunately, we have to read through the Income Tax Act all the time when we're working with files. And as much as I love finance, I don't love the Income Tax Act. It's super, super boring. But I think Mike nailed it. It's a progressive tax system. So as you earn money, you don't get taxed at a flat rate. So it is not 50% of your income is just automatically taxed. That is not how it works. Instead, how you can think of it is think of it like you have a series of cups and you're pouring water into the top cup. I don't know if my hands are working here, but you're pouring water into the top cup, and that's gonna be your first tax bracket. And as that starts to fill up, it'll overflow into the next bowl, and it'll overflow into the next bowl. And as you go down bowls, your tax rate will increase. So if you are in or earning only in this first tax bracket, that's all you're going to be taxed. But if you have excess income over this bracket and it drips over into the next bowl, you'll be taxed at that rate, and so on and so on and so on. So is it perfect? No. Is it more fair than a flat tax system? Yes. Is it worth freaking out about because you think we're all paying 50% taxes? No,
Yeah.
but I do understand that everything is so expensive. So a lot of people love to say, false information to freak you out and be like, I need to follow this person and learn what's going on. And they're probably going to try and sell you some kind of program or course or a rug pull of like, hey, the Canadian government's screwing you over, 50% taxes, take care of yourself, buy this crypto coin, and then they pull and sell their position, and then you're stuck holding the bag. We see that happen time and time again in the news. So if something seems freaky to you, it's probably someone trying to gaslight you or freak you out and make you panic about it. Take your time, do some research, ask somebody that knows that space, and then kind of go from there. So it's a progressive tax system. It's not 50%. Um, and if you're paying CPP premiums and EI, then you can start to be like, oh man, I'm paying a lot of stuff. But also keep in mind that you get stuff back from that. If you opt into EI, you can collect that back. If you have job loss or things of that type, disabilities, injuries. If you have CPP, same thing, you have CPP disability. If you pass away, your spouse can also get survivorship, which is a portion of your CPP, all that kind of stuff. So what you pay in Canada, you do get something back from it. But again, like Mike keeps saying, it really comes down to your plan. So does that make sense for you? We don't know enough to say yes or no, but we do know enough to say do your research and see if it makes sense for you.
Yeah, and I'll just add, historically, used to have clients that were self-employed that basically would show nothing on their taxes because they didn't want to pay any tax. And with the mortgage changes over the last 5, 10 years, they've made it harder and harder for those people to get money in a mortgage. There are some programs, but they're not cheap. And I think one of the things to think about, if you are planning to buy real estate at some point, weigh it out. If you can save 40 or $50,000 in taxes, but pay a little bit more interest rate for that to get the mortgage, maybe it's worth it. It's just a math calculation at that point. But don't
Mhm.
expect to get the lowest rate when you show no income. That's just not going to happen. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
balancing act, and it's really important for people to understand that, because I've had many clients that walk in and show me 3 years of taxes and they make $4,000 a year, and they want to borrow $800,000. Like, would you lend
Not gonna
them that
happen.
money?
Not gonna happen. No, it's a
Yeah.
great point. As we wrap up here, me and Mike were just talking. We want to try and keep these as short as possible because people commute a lot less than they did before, so the long format doesn't really hit as well. But Mike, you said something earlier about keeping more of your money, and I think we'll wrap up with just giving our own perspectives on this. So when I think of keeping more of your money, I think of what are you doing with the money you already have to maximize it. So if you're young, and by young, I mean not like 5 years out from retirement. This is very important to listen to. You probably have an income and you're probably doing something with that income. So for example, if you're earning money and then you've worked really hard and you've been able to save for a down payment, now you have your primary residence and that's increased in value. That's an example of you have one asset. So now what can you do with that asset to keep more of your money? Does it make sense to leave all your money in equity? Maybe, maybe not. perhaps you can take some of that money and max out your RRSPs, and then you can get one asset turned into two assets, but you also get a big tax return at the end of the year, and you can also put that in your RRSP, and now that can help you save up for retirement. Perhaps it's the other way around, and you are on a sabbatical from work, and you want to withdraw some of your RSP and put that onto an extra payment on your mortgage. There's so many different things that we can do. So when I think of keep more of your money, my mind always goes to what do you have already? What is your ideal scenario? And how can we utilize the assets that you already have to maximize your position? And again, going back to the original point in the beginning is you have to pay your taxes, but you don't have to leave a tip. So making sure you're taking care of deductions and credits. A lot of people understand deductions of if I put my money here, it's going to reduce my taxable income. But a lot of people, when we first sign them on as financial planning clients, we look at their tax returns, they aren't doing a lot of uh, good work with their tax credits. So they're leaving money on the table. And credits are great because it's a direct reduction of your tax bill at the end of the year. So credits are really, really important. And it's important that you know what credits are available to you. So that's my point of view when it comes to keeping more of your money. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, I like the keeping your more of your money, but I think it's like you said, some of that is using your money properly. I mean, just keeping it for the sake of, burning it doesn't make a lot of sense. And yeah, I mean, some people will do that, but I think one of the things we talked about previously on a different one is set up your account so that money comes out automatically, and then that way have it go for your tax. Like take even if you're self-employed, have money go out for your tax account and have money go out for your savings and your RSPs or whatever. You can have 5 or 10 of them if you really want to. And what's cool is what's left in your account. Okay, that you can do whatever you want with. But then after a couple months, review it. And if you're finding you have more money than you need, or you're saving more, or want to save more, because the thing is, once you start to do that way, you'll feel better about where you're going, and you'll want to do more of it. And then you've got more options. And I think just the more assets you have, like the equity in your property or RSPs, it gives you more options down the road. And I think that's what keeping more of your money is about. I mean, except that you're not going to keep it all. You have to pay tax. You have to deal with life and pay for whatever we need for living. But in the end, there's a psychological component to keeping a little bit more than you used to, and trying to build that over time. And I think that's really important to we don't all build bridges, and we don't leave something behind that we can be proud of necessarily in our jobs. But if you build your own net worth and do that, you will feel good about that. And I think that's really positive.
Absolutely. Really well said. That's it for us, guys. Stay tuned for the next week of Portfolio Talks. And if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe and go back and check out some other videos that we've done. We've talked about a lot of components of finances, things that can help you improve your situation. And of course, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us on whatever platform you're watching. And we'll be happy to either answer your questions in the next episode or just answer them in the comment section. So hope you all have a great day and stay tuned for more.